We're live? I think we're live. Okay, cool. So, hey, I'm Adam. I'm a designer, I'm a developer, and I am currently undertaking Victorworks Masterclass in creating memorable websites. Now, I've been doing this for 25 plus 26 years or so. I know how to make websites, brands, you name it, I can do it. But I love learning. And one big aspect of this course that I wanted to learn from Victor was how to, you know, have a better process or like involve new things within my process to create better products at the end of it. Now, what I've discovered throughout this journey so far is that the type of experience that I'm planning to create is going to be something that's really pushing the boundaries for me on a personal level. It's going to be I'm going to be creating an experience that is like no other experience that I've done in the past. And so this is just ticking boxes for me. So my hopes is that I can dive into areas of my current skill set and add new skills to that skill set, like especially around 3D and WebGL, because that's an area that I really, really want to explore and really dive into and do more of in the future. So why not take this sort of like course and journey to essentially like kick my ass into that area. So part of this, just to share an update of where I am, part of the course is to share online where I am with my journey so far with my art direction. Now I think I did share a little glimpse as to what I'm working on, and my art direction is kind of finished, and I'm hoping to share some of that with you today. So the art direction that the concept of the project is around the samurai. Now I'm deeply connected to it through martial arts and my past and the history behind it. Like I'm quite connected to it, and that's why I chose that subject. The stage of where I'm at with the course right now is that there is the usage of like Midjourney, so using AI to create conceptual ideas and then progress them into something that that I want to take into my digital experience. So it'd be something that's like creating ideas and concepts to then evolve for me without AI. I'm not relying on it in any form. I want to create everything myself, and I'll show you. So here we are. We've got the samurai from war to memory. So that is the title of my project, and there is 4 pillars: Monumental Darkness, which will be capturing sort of like 3D models, realism in a sense, volumetric lighting, and then throughout the experience there's going to be 8 chapters to tell a specific story. The question that's going to be laid out is, what happened to the samurai. So by the end of the 8 chapters, you'll get the answer. And I'm hoping that it'll take you on, a little bit of an explorative journey. It's not an ordinary website by any means, but that's the point. So there's 4 pillars. Monumental Darkness is probably the one that I'm going to go with. I've got mythical and artistic, so this is leaning something towards a little bit more like postified art, I'd say magazine-ish, like magazine cover, really like abstract in a way. Cinematic blur noir, however, is, think of like movie motion, stop motion, like time stop, but with motion blur. If you think of like, if you think of samurai, everybody's got assumptions. And we think of like past movies, they have done it in there before where, let's say a samurai wants to like move through a crowd really fast and he's like, zoop, zoop, zoop. And you see these motion blur lines. The whole concept, the visual aspect of it is to really hone in on that for that category. However, doing that in a digital experience is probably going to be nearly impossible. But we'll see. And then the last one is like touching towards like anime, so like painterly effects with anime 3D models with a touch of realism in there as well. But yeah, let me show you. So we've got the title. So if I move over to the right here, let's zoom out a little bit. Here we've got the a little poster art, essentially. Let me go here. And this is essentially the art direction panels that I've created. So into the first one, I've found like, use Midjourney to capture a specific prompt, a specific art style, which is like, photorealism, early 1600s ish, around like the Battle of Sakagara, and very black and white, and it feels quite monumental, hence Monumental Darkness. And then I've got I've created like a poster, added some effects, explored typography and how typography would feel, how button styles might look. I've explored sort of like a logo and how that would sit and lift off the visuals behind as well. Now imagine like this is actually in 3D, so as you're like moving around the experience, or like moving your cursor, for example, there's going to be lighting changes, shadow changes, and it's going to be, really impactful with that. But when the sort of like text is overlaid over the top, I make it a little bit more cinematic, so the titles have a little blur to add a little bit more depth to it as well. Moving over to the right hand side. So, in fact, before I do that, I'll jump back here. So these are additional posters that I've created with those elements that I've designed as well. So that's the first one. The second one here, there's a little bit of like a circular element happening in the center there. Perhaps that might be an element that I use. I've got these sort of like little icons as well, just to bring out more of that Japanese style. And then over here, this one, which I really, really like, these down here will probably be something that I use. These are number 1 to 8 in Japanese, to resemble the 8 chapters. And how I do that, I have gone further ahead than the art direction right now. I may show something at the end. I'm not sure yet, so we'll see. We've got these sort of like ink droplet effects that I may use to like either reveal scenes or reveal text. I think something like that. It's like, imagine like paper burning away the the textures, and I use that in reverse to reveal as well as like burn away whatever's displayed. And there'll be lots of things sort of like happening all at once to, get you engaged in those like different areas as well of the screen. This sword is one that I've actually done in Blender. That might be, probably will be something that I use, whether it's black and white or color, I'm not sure yet. And then I've sort of like explored typography as well. This is like very serif, but there might be something else that I use alongside it as well. I think serif goes quite well to sort of like tell that history. You see this sort of like typography usage in museums, on wall art where they have like a description of something from the past. So yeah. So then, if we go over to the next one, so this is the sort of like mythical, artistic, where I've pulled out this sort of like style choice here, and then created pieces of elements that may or may not be used. Where I've sort of like wanted like, cherry blossoms like falling, political papers. So like in the later chapters of the digital experience, this, I'm not going to give too much away, but politics gets involved. So there'll be like papers and things. So there'll be a chapter about that. And then we've got like really close up about, you see these like paper texture, like almost that was really like traditional in Japanese culture. We've got the masks. There's lots of different types of masks too. So I'm not sure if I'm going to really like dive deep into the different ones. We've got clan banners as well. So Japan is split up into many clans, and I plan to illustrate that in a 3D way too. So there's these sort of like banners. Every clan had like a different like logo. Now I've done a lot of research. I've got the logos. I may do something with that too. We'll see. So this is sort of like one of the sort of like final pieces that I landed on how I can use the typography, put the sort of like logo in the back as well. That's not actually the final logo. I may show that shortly. So if we go over here we've got more exploration on how that might work. Now you saw these sort of like symbols here where I'm like using circles for the chapter numbers, where on this version I'm sort of like doing something a little bit more stylized, where it's like the more square but slightly like cut off on the corner, textured as well, just to blend in with the visual assets in the back as well. Whether this version would be 3D, I'm not sure. Probably not. It might be, think of like, heavy use of textured gradients, SVGs, a 2D sort of like shape model, but there'd be like movement with parallax and things like that. Same with this sort of like grass here. My plan would be to, hand draw this in like Photoshop as like a standalone texture. Send that into After Effects and make it move, sway left to right. Same with the clan banner there as well. So I can create some like a little bit more depth of field. I can add wind and things like that into the experience. So that's kind of like my, I've got plans for different things and different pieces of art that I want to show. People that know me as well know that I'm a hater of justified text. I'm not getting into it. I hate it. So you might be surprised that I'm using it here. I'm using kind of like a mix. So if we go to this example, for example, if I use justified text with this sort of like paper texture container, it kind of fits, and I quite like it. And then we've got like a different kind of logo down here as well. So a little experimentation, different font choice here as well. Just like exploring how I can blend all these sort of different elements together. And then we've got one that looks a little bit crazy, and this is the sort of like the cinematic blur noir. This is obviously the final poster that I created. These are sort of like where I went originally with the style, and then as you can see here, like it kind of like makes it a little bit like historic. It's looking into the past. There's like a time stopped, time lapse sort of like element to this, and I think it really does make it impactful. But my hope is with this digital experience is to do something that's quite heavy with like 3D WebGL and like really like performance heavy effects. Sorry if you've got a slow computer, but this is what I'm doing. And I think something like this, to be fair, I don't know how I would achieve it. And even though I now see that as a challenge, I do want to push myself as much as I can. But I think this would be something like really next level. So maybe I do something with this in the future. But I don't think it's a direction that would be a smart choice, given that I kind of want to do this within the next few months. But I do like it. And if I should just show you the art direction here, as you can see, you know, I've used sort of like justified text here, something a little bit different, which I'm going to take part of my idea here as well. So I've got these sort of like little pieces of text that provide information about the samurai, but they'll be like, it's like words from memories, so they'll be like fading in, fading out, or like revealing with the ink droplet texture, for example. And to add to that sort of like motion blur effect as well, just in Figma I'm using like the glass effect, but like sort of like burning the title, burning some of the text to the edges of the edges of the screen. I think will, you know, really do a lot. And then using sort of like progressive blurs and things like that to really sort of like tell a story in a way and put a lot of focus in the right places. Like we can see, for example, this, even though there's a lot going on with the graphic and the title here, there's things happening at the top, there's textures, there's still focus on the content, and that's the really important thing too. Okay, so the last one, as you may have just noticed, this is sort of like the anime sort of like direction. You might see these in like, you know, comic art that kind of vibe. This is sort of like the thing that I saw, and I was like, okay, cool, painterly effects in Blender, definitely doable. In WebGL, probably a lot harder. But I saw this and I thought I kind of want to explore that. So looking at sort of like Japanese characters, you know, like the samurai, some of the elements that are used within this are not realistic. Like some of these pieces of armor are not just, it's not true. And that's what pulls me away from trying to achieve this. If I was to spend a lot of time, you know, in Blender or something else to achieve this, I would have to probably model it all from scratch. And yeah, not for a single person to do this. You know, I know I can be stupid, but I'm not that stupid. I'd need a full team of people to do this. However, I do like the art direction of, like, you know, I've got this sort of like burning, ripped, what's going on there? Ripped effect of the sort of like the clan banner. I might take that idea into the direction I've chosen. And then, as you can see, like I'm looking at different elements like the interior, papers, things like that, cherry blossoms, you know, the samurai swords, really important materials that I need to take into my direction. And then I've obviously created this one. If I just jump over to this side. So here you can actually see where I was thinking with this like anime sort of artistic style. Now I've reused my my Samurai 3D model here just to finish off that poster. But you can see I'm using a slightly more traditional Japanese like typeface for like secondary titles. I've got a different kind of logo here. That's actually the shape of the final logo that I came up with. And then using sort of like burning reds in different places to make it feel like a bloodbath in a way, but not too gory. It still needs to be like visually engaging. But then obviously taking sort of like that magazine approach, having these sort of like boxes to contain the content and the messaging that sort of like is aside from the visual background. Now, if I was able to create this in 3D, like this, for example, imagine like this is a full 3D scene. We've got contextual boxes overlaid over the screen, and you scroll through, and you either go backwards or you go forwards, and you go down the line of these samurai characters. Would be absolutely intense, but again, I think with the visual style, I think it would be very difficult to achieve within a certain amount of time. So I'm not saying that I'm going with the easy choice. I think I'm going with the choice that is right for the story, and the sort of like the emotional feeling that I want people to get from telling this story too. So yeah, that's kind of that's the art direction, at least. Shall I show anything else? Okay, I'll give you a little teaser on something. So I'm actually mapping out with so like the screens, the elements. This is just drawn with sketch really quickly with a Wacom. Just to like wireframe where things might go, what the content might be, something that is like posing questions on the screen to make you start getting connected with the story, and then revealing different things, like this. What happens when who you are is no longer needed? That's like such a powerful question, and I think that's gonna really draw people in. This is like forgive the drawing, forgive the scribbles, but this is sort of like the ink droplet reveal burn effects that I can sort of like in my own head capture an idea, get it on a screen, and instantly I know. Even if this is like 6 months later when I get to this, I'll know exactly what this screen is. It's for me, it's not for anybody else. So yeah, I've got a few things going on there that might look a little bit exciting. For example, Japan, the clan banners. Yeah, I've still got more to do, but I'm not going to show too much on that. But yeah, here we go. Thanks all. Leave a like, leave a comment. Enjoy.